blustery, wild day here on the edge of the plains, but we're used to that. By now, spring planting in the Midwest has been completed, and farmers are looking forward to a good crop. With some luck, farmers and their families might even be able to catch their breath long enough to admire their work. And hard work it is, being so close to the land. A farmer's land has to generate enough annual income to service the note at the bank, feed the family, and build up equity in that land. Any conservation program must support those needs or it may not work, because the first thing farmers have to conserve is their own survival. That's why saving or restoring places like this has gotten to be a hot topic in the farm country. A lot of operators have a difference of opinion on the value of wetlands. In the first place, just what is a wetland? There's a lot of confusion about that. There's no doubt that this is a wetland, but sometimes it's not easy to tell. Some specialists say you can recognize a wetland with the kinds of plants there, ones that have to live in saturated soils and around water. The thing is, wetlands come in all styles and sizes, from less than an acre to 100 acres or more. And some always have standing water. Others hold water only in the spring or only after heavy rains. Now, there are all kinds of wetlands with all kinds of names. There's the classic prairie pothole of northern Iowa, what my granddad called a prairie slough. And the playa lakes of western Kansas, shallow wetlands that may go dry in summer. There's the rainwater basin of south-central Nebraska and the oxbow ponds and wet bottomlands like these along Missouri's streams and rivers, and chronic wet spots in fields and pastures. You can plant a combine there, but not much else. All are genuine wetlands, and they all have genuine values to the landowner. More than half of our nation's original wetlands have been drained and filled since this country was settled. And there's no denying that we've benefited in important ways. Some of our best farmland today was brought into production with ditches and clay tiles. But there's a growing sense that things have gone too far, and a lot of drained or filled sloughs, potholes, and wet bottomlands would have been better left as they were. What some might call nuisance marshes and sloughs are diamonds in the rough, part of the old original worth keeping. As they become more scarce, they become more valuable. Sure, they're magnets for wildlife that put spice in farm living and add variety to the home place, but their values go way beyond ducks and pheasants and such. For one thing, they're part of the hydrologic cycle, and that's mighty important as you get out into more arid country or run into a dry spell. The hydrologic cycle is a basic process. A drop of water falls from the sky as snow or rain, and sooner or later it comes back as water vapor. It's what happens in between that's so important to us. How can that drop of water be put to the best use while we have it, before it evaporates into the atmosphere? Back in the Dust Bowl era, when a lot of farms were dying of thirst while others were being flooded out, the newly formed Soil Conservation Service was preaching a new philosophy. Keep the raindrop where it falls, or close to where it falls. After all, it's your raindrop. Put it to work and keep it from rushing downhill, because the faster it travels, the more of your soil is going to be carried along as baggage. Look at it this way. Without anything to slow it down, a large volume of water can run off cropland fast and dirty, and the faster the dirtier. A wetland can slow and store the runoff, metering it into streams over a longer time. The creeks stay in their banks, the dirt stays in the field, and a lot of wild water is tamed. Flood flows in farm country can be reduced 80% in watersheds with wetlands as compared to those without. In one Midwestern state, it's estimated that the water stored in a single 1-acre wetland, 12 inches deep, could save the state taxpayers hundreds of dollars each year. Soil erosion has always been with us and will be as long as rain falls and wind blows. All we can do is try to hold it to a practical minimum. Wetlands can help do that. But there are other threats, and wetlands can help meet those too. We're putting a lot on the land these days that makes for higher production. Trouble is, some of that fertilizer and pesticide gets into the water cycle where it's not wanted, into streams or down into the groundwater. A wetland works like a kidney, filtering and removing waste that can be harmful to the whole system. Dissolved nutrients and other chemicals are taken out of circulation and may even be broken down, especially if there's wetland with its feet wet. Cattails, slewgrass, bulrushes, those plants and the plant debris on the bottom can trap and hold pollutants that we don't want in our streams and lakes. The water running through a place like this comes out cleaner than when it came in. Some wetlands have been shown to control water pollution caused by human and livestock wastes. In one 2,300-acre forested wetland, this wetland function has been estimated to save municipal wastewater treatment costs of over $1 million each year. A marsh like this has a watertight basin, and some sort of clay seal usually. But there are other kinds of wetlands that leak, and we need them too. These are also good filters, especially for excess nitrogen. They may trap and hold runoff for a while, remove the nitrates, and then release the cleaner water into the groundwater systems that we draw on for drinking water. That's especially important in Kansas and Nebraska. In some rural areas, up to 90% of the drinking water comes from groundwater. Some communities are in trouble because the groundwater is being used faster than it can be replenished. Groundwater recharged from wetlands helps keep this use balanced. These low places stay wet longer than the land around them. In a hot, dry summer, they're likely to have the best forage for hay or grazing, and crop yields are often higher. In a normal year, they can give upland pastures a rest. Wetland forage is like money in the bank, kept in reserve during wet years and then withdrawn in dry years. Ranchers in Nebraska's sandhills know this. Native hay from wet meadows there brings about $40 per ton or $50 per acre. Furthermore, places like this help check soil erosion, filter out some of the field chemicals and runoff, and help recharge groundwater. Nuisance areas? I hardly think so. Still, there's that question. Do the benefits of permanent and temporary wetlands outweigh the benefits of draining or filling the wetland and putting it into crops? One way to answer that is to ask, what's the cost of draining or filling the wetland? The easy-to-drain wetlands are mostly gone. Granddad drained land because it was profitable to do so. Today it may not be so. Wetland conversion is likely to cost more in loss of benefits, not to mention cash outlay, than it will bring in. A recent study in south-central Nebraska demonstrated that it wasn't profitable to convert seasonally flooded wetland areas to more intensive agricultural uses. A converted wetland will have to produce some good yields to make up for those costs and losses, and you can't always count on wetland soils and fills to give the same yields as upland soils. And there's another thing. You don't just owe your banker. You owe your children and your grandchildren something too. Land ought to raise all sorts of crops, such as kids and wild critters, and the kind of variety that puts some spice into life. Wetlands as nuisance areas, capital assets is how they ought to be viewed. Draining them means draining away capital. It can also mean losing some of the extras that wetlands can produce. And some of us are sure partial to those extras.